The last time I saw Brian was in 2016, when he visited me in New Hampshire. Our objective? Geek out about cooking. We experimented with baking, tried out fancy kitchen gear, tasted anything that seemed worth tasting. One of Brian's oldest fantasies was to have his own restaurant, so I suggested we host a pop-up event in my cafe-style living room. I'd invite friends between 11 and 4, and we would feed them stuff we made. I chose to make Taiwanese lunchboxes, and Brian agreed to make his famous meat pies, which I had heard about but had never tried. While I fussed with my pork chops, Brian made critical adjustments to his pie crust recipe, preparing the dough by hand because he wanted to feel the texture as it came together. He browned prime morsels of beef, which were simmered until tender. Into each hand-shaped pie shell, he spooned a measured portion of beef and concentrated gravy. I knew Brian had tested a lot of ideas in the pursuit of his perfect meat pie, but I had never seen him in action before. The intensity and variety of technique on display was really impressive. When my friends stopped by to see what weird, nerdy thing we were doing, we gave them the set menu, then piled on the food. After eating their fill, every one of my friends said that while my food had been good, Brian's pies were clearly the outstanding dish of the day. I bowed down before the victorious Brian, who was outwardly modest but obviously delighted. We had put a smile on everyone's face, and this really made us both winners. I don't think Brian knew just how powerful he was becoming, because he never thought of himself as being special. I can only imagine, though, how high he would have soared. I think it would have been glorious.
Hi, my name is Adam McMahon. I was the art director at Red 5 Studios, where I had the pleasure of working with and befriending Brian Stu. There aren't enough words of praise to describe Brian and the person he was. More so, the impact he had in our lives. You'll undoubtedly hear this in spades, and for good reason. Brian was one of the great ones. As sincere, gracious, and humble as they come. He made life for those around him better, and most certainly brighter. Brian's impact was felt by us all, and will carry on for everyone that knew him. I'd like to take a moment to touch on a side that many do not know, or have not experienced with Brian, and that is Brian, the coworker and the employee. Brian was a fledgling and completely green when I interviewed him, and ultimately started him off as an intern. He was passionate about animation and the opportunity to work in games. Admittedly, I had my reservations. Potential and work ethic are often leaps of faith, which his brother John had plenty of, and that was more than enough for me. With Lucas and Jenna as his mentors, Brian quickly showed us how deserving he was of a full-time role. Brian's personality and life was carried over in his work. He was always extremely humble, dedicated, and selfless. If he ever encountered something he wasn't comfortable with or didn't meet his expectations, he would pour himself into it and make sure he conquered it, often spending countless hours and late nights at the office. To put it simply, he was a dedicated employee with a passion and drive for what he did. And he made my life so much easier working with him. Brian had an incredibly strong aptitude for the technical side of things, and he showcased that with his work on our Blackwater event in Firefall. As many animators know, tentacles are very difficult to animate and make look good. Brian, our most junior animator, was given this task. And while he struggled at first, he pulled off creating one of our most exciting and technically difficult events for our game. Every day when I saw Brian at work, he would salute me, like I was Commander-in-Chief. He would always follow with a smile and chuckle. For some reason, this stuck with me and always made me smile. It will always remind me of this quirky little guy that made coming into work a joy. And in short, Brian was an absolute pleasure to work with. He made my life easier with his no drama, dedication, and passionate work ethic. Always willing to take on whatever was thrown at him and help wherever he was needed. Brian represented all that was positive in this world and was a better man than me. I miss you greatly, my friend, and know we'll meet again.